Here's the Sony AX53. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 things I absolutely love about this camera and a few things that I don't like about it, but it only applies if you wanted to use this for more of a professional setting. This is not meant for the professional videographers. This is meant for the high-end parent or a hobbyist who wants to shoot on full auto and doesn't really want to bother with manual controls. So if you are an automatic shooter, you want the camera to make all the choices for you, this camera is, I think, one of the best, if not the best, in its price range for 2019. This was released, maybe 2015, 2016, and it's still, Sony has not, in 2019, released an updated version of this because this is, they kind of had to hit a home run with this. So let me go through the features that I like the best. The first thing I like about this camera is the lens. This lens is a 20 times optical and then even further digital zoom. And the digital zoom is amazing because it's a 4K camera, and then when you shoot in HD mode, you have an extension in the sensor. So it is a digital, but it's within the sensor, and you get a very clear, even further zoom than a 20 times optical. This is a wide-angle lens in the widest focal length. This is pretty wide compared to a lot of other camcorders. This is a 26.8 millimeter wide-angle lens in its most zoomed out, and that means if you have a child or a small baby, or if you're an animal lover and you want to get right up to your animals or your kids, you can get right into their face, and it's a pretty wide enough where you can just be right up close and personal and not have to worry about the lens being too zoomed in. There's not many camcorders out there with this wide of an angle lens without having to put on an adapter. You don't really need an adapter. You could still screw one on. You can go zoom in pretty far and zoom out pretty wide. The second thing I like about this with the lens is the image stabilization. This has what Sony calls a balanced optical steady shot image stabilization, and that means the lens is being stabilized inside of the camera body. You can see the lens staying centered while inside of the body. No other camcorder has what Sony has when it comes to their lens stabilization. Usually the stabilizations are all in the sensor, or it's in optically, but not a whole lens shifting that Sony has. This is pretty good. That means if you're a parent, or if you're trying to shoot something handheld, if you want a travel camera, or if you want to shoot a vlog of yourself, you can hold it and start walking, and this will be like a gimbal. Not as smooth as a gimbal, but you pretty much can walk around, maybe even run around and have a steady image as you're shooting. The third thing I like about this camera is the battery life. This battery has lasted, 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours. So I have 2 batteries, and I could go all day. So if you're shooting your kid's baseball tournament, and it's an all-day tournament, you can have 2 batteries, shoot the entire baseball match or whatever you want to use it for. This charger I had to buy separately. These 2 I had to buy separately. This came with the camera. I bought this separately. If you don't have this, you just charge the battery internally with the included AC adapter. This becomes a battery the camera itself becomes a battery charger. The fourth thing I like about this camera are the audio. You have the 5.1 surround sound over here on certain codecs. It depends on the codec you use, but you have a surround sound microphone. It's a very good microphone. And then you have on this side a microphone jack, and you also have a headphone jack. Where's the headphone jack? Headphone jack is oddly in the front of the camera here. There's you have a headphone. But you have a headphone to monitor your audio, and you have that where you can, if you have an external microphone, 3.5mm microphone, you can just connect it to the hot cold shoe up here. The final thing with the audio is, since this is a hot shoe, proprietary hot shoe, if you purchase Sony's external proprietary devices, audio devices, you can connect it. So they have a microphone, a shotgun microphone that connects right to this camera, and it powers it and it transfers the audio through it. You can also have an XLR adapter that you can plug in here if you want XLR. You have to buy that module separately, but with this connection, it draws its power from the battery, and all the audio is filtered into the camera through that connection. You can't find these features in cameras of this size and this price range. And the last thing I really love about this camera are the codecs and frame rates it shoots in. I can shoot the XAVC-S, AVC-HD, or MP4 codecs all the way up to UHD 4K 30p at 100 megabits. It doesn't shoot 60, it goes as high as 30, but 100 megabits at UHD 4K is pretty high quality for this camera. And you have like a cinema tone and some other picture profiles that you can use. You don't have any S-logs because it's just an 8-bit codec and it would fall apart, and it's a small sensor. But you have enough in camera that looks amazing. So those are the features that I really love with this camera. They're all perfect features for if you're a YouTuber that you don't want a lot of manual control, if, parent, traveler, this is a phenomenal camera. And you don't need anything else. It's just this and maybe an external microphone. Now, the things that really suck about this camera are for professionals, or if you want more professional features. And the number one thing, the biggest issue with this camera is its manual exposure control. It doesn't have a manual exposure control where you can control the iris, the shutter speed, and the ISO at the same time. It doesn't allow you to do that. So Sony did this because they have a model above the AX53 that is basically the same thing as the AX53, but you get your exposure controls. I don't know, that's just the manufacturer trying to make money off of consumers. So that sucks. There's no built-in ND filters, so there's no internal switch where you can enable ND filters. You gotta bring ND filters, so that sucks as well. There's no 4K 60p. There is an HDMI output. There's an micro HDMI, and it does output a clean signal, but it's an 8-bit codec. I mean, it's an 8-bit signal, it's not 10-bit, and it's 420 8-bit. So really, this is not meant, there's a lot of internal features that prohibits professionals from really using this. And I think Sony just did that because they want to protect their higher end cameras. Seems ridiculous to me as a consumer, but if I were them, yeah, sure, I'd handicap the technology just to save, just to make money. But what I said at the beginning of this video is this is meant for people who want to shoot full auto, and it's amazing. So now I'm gonna go outside and shoot some test footage, all handheld, so you can see how amazing the optical Boss lens stabilization is. All right, I am handheld now. I am shooting 4K UHD, 30p. I have almost all settings on auto. Everything is on auto. I locked the white balance in daylight white balance, and then I locked off the AGC, the gain, at 18 dBs. So it will fluctuate the gain, which is pretty much like the ISO, and it will cap it off at 18, but 18 is already pretty high. So this is kind of a low light situation. This is indoors, shooting my dog. The lens is an f2 right now, pretty wide angle lens. I mean, it's zoomed out all the way and it's at an f2. So when you zoom out all the way, it's at an f2. going to test this zoom stabilization. So, I'm going to test this lens stabilization when I zoom in all the way. Here it goes. And I'm handheld too. Whoa. Wow. I am zoomed in all the way. And I'm handheld. And this is pretty steady. My gosh. It's like I'm using a tripod.